morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, thank you. I'm tempted to just bask in that for a while, but it wouldn't be fair to you. This is a wonderful place. For the last few weeks, I've been watching my fellow district pastors come up here. I've been observing their faces closely at this moment when the lights come on and they see what's in front of them, and I wonder, what do they see that causes them to be so full of awe and delight? So now I've experienced, so now I can go back to Seattle. Thank you for your kind attention. I really wish I was a musician. It's been awesome music. It's incredible. I love this music ministry. I didn't want it to stop for various reasons, but I just love the music. Do you remember the last time that our senior pastor spoke here? What date that was? It was February 13th of this year. That was the last time she spoke live to us, and her topic was real love. And that's was a powerful speech. I was in Seattle at the time at our Loving Life service, and that was a time when we recognized that all the district pastors would be called to this pulpit to deliver a message. So I was paying particularly close attention that day. I had my little red notebook out. And she talked about, her message was based on the motto of this year, which is the era of the complete victorious liberation of true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. And she talked a lot about liberation. And to summarize an important part of her speech, important to me, she said last year the focus was a united ministry. This year the focus is family spirit. Sharing the pulpit. Let's give a big hand for that. Sharing the pulpit as a united family in order to raise great kids, great families, great communities, and create a paradigm of true love. That is our mission, and that is the mission of Love and Life Ministry, and that is our mission as a church community. And this is how we liberate true parents. So I'll be talking more about liberation, but I want to introduce myself. I don't get an opportunity like this very often, and you probably wonder who I am. Let me check my driver's license. I'm Larry Krishnick. I'm the Northwest District 10 pastor. Let's hear it for the Northwest. That's right. Stand up. Praise. And it's a great district. Just like all our districts are great, but this one's truly great. And it isn't just the place of my assignment or the place where I work, where I carry out my mission, but I was born in my district. I was born in Washington State. I have Washington. I've got moss in my blood and rain in my heart. And I was born in Northwest Washington in Bellingham and Whatcom County. It's the most northwest county in the contiguous United States. You know what contiguous means, right? It's the 48, the lower 48. That means the ones that are all stuck together. So I was way north, way close. I was practically a Canadian, which is why I can speak the language very well. I get along really well with Canadians. Also, I was spiritually born. I got new life in my district, in Boise, Idaho. It's where I joined the church. Anybody here joined in Boise? Stand up and give a big hand. That's, I appreciate your politeness, but there are people who joined in Boise. And I was one of them. My roots, well, I received a marriage blessing in 1982 with many of you here and throughout. And my wife, not surprisingly, is Japanese. She's a wonderful woman, and she keeps me vertical. We have 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son. My eldest daughter is Miwa, second daughter Bobea, third daughter Chungwon, my son Tae-san, whose future wife is sitting here in the front row supporting me. I thought it might embarrass her. So I appreciate her. She's my object today. But most importantly, my elder daughter Miwa is the mother of Nico Anthony Aparo, who is my grandson. And he is next to a few people, he's my most favorite person in the world. He teaches me lessons about true love that I could never have imagined. I can learn from him what it means that the family is a school of love. Yeah, I mean, who's a grandparent? So you know that already, you know. But when you become a grandparent, it's another zone. It's completely different reality of love. And I'll talk a little bit more about him later. I could talk about him the whole time. But I'll go back to the district. District 10 is huge, geographically and also historically. We've got Alaska in our district. Alaska is really big. It's even bigger than Texas, sorry to say. We've got Montana. It's our second biggest state. A couple weeks ago, Reverend Takami talked about Montana, but that's only our second biggest state. He had to borrow Montana because he needed a big state. Thank you, Takami-san. We also got Idaho, you know, famous potatoes and other things, Oregon, and of course Washington. But more importantly is the spiritual heritage of our district. Did you know that 2 of the 3 original missionaries that came to America started out in Oregon, in the state of Oregon? David S.C. Kim in Portland, Oregon. He's an Oregonian there. Miss Young-Un Kim in Eugene, Oregon. And I don't know, let's say a hand for these beautiful people. Is there any Pumphreys in the audience, by any chance? You know Lloyd Pumphrey, and you know Robert Pumphrey and the other Pumphreys. Their parents were some of the very first people to join in Eugene in 1960, very early on. Lloyd was like the first Jacob's child, first child of a family that joined our church. So it's an incredible place, and I'm really blessed to be from there. Also, a little bit of trivia is that the True family, when they came to the United States, when Father's children came to America to join Father and Mother, they cleared immigration in Seattle, Washington. And I was new in faith at that time, and my spiritual mother took me to the airport to greet them. And I had a little bouquet of flowers, which I gave to Kukchinim. And I don't think he remembers, but I do. And it's a special moment. True parents have visited Seattle many times, and not only in providentially significant tours, but because of their interest in the ocean. We all know how committed Father is to the sea as a source of hope and life and adventure for the future and for the present. He came several times during the time of the preparation of Ocean Peace, which is a factory trawler ship and a foundation for a very successful business now. I could go on and on about our states and our people, and I'm going to a little bit. We have Montana. You know, we have beautiful families in Montana. I know we have Kendall here, who's from Montana, and also Robert. Of course, Washington State and GPA, we got Dakota, Nishioka down there as well, too. Anyone else from Washington? Eileen Grandstrom. GPA is full of representatives of our district. I don't think we have anybody from Idaho, though. We've got people, we have in Oregon, anyone here from Oregon? Of course, Taka is from Oregon, and Washington State. So all of our district is pretty well represented on the GPA. So it's a wonderful place. But I'd like to spend some time to talk about a particularly important place in our district, which is way beyond our district, which is Kodiak, Alaska. And Kodiak, as you know, is a very significant holy place. It's beyond just a place. It has incredible importance to the True parents. And we're really honored to be able to be the custodians of that location. The brothers and sisters in that island have been able to share life so intimately with True parents in a way that is just inconceivable to the rest of us on a day-by-day basis. And actually, we have at least two young women who are from Kodiak Island who are working here in the New York area. Natalie, formerly Franklin, and I think Wendy Fiala, and others as well, too. So you should ask them their stories sometime. It's just remarkable, the experiences that they had. And True parents come to Kodiak almost every year. Only one year they didn't come, but last year they came and they stayed a full week. And I'd like to show you a few pictures. I have permission to do a little show and tell here. The pictures will come up. Yeah, you recognize that. That is probably, that is in North Garden, which is Father's House in Kodiak, Alaska at the 100K. True parents came, I believe, on the 28th of July last year. And they met together with all our brothers in there. You see all those people in the maroon t-shirts? That's Ocean Challenge. Anybody here? You want to stand up and take a bow there? Uncle Greg. He's one of the greatest cheerleaders for Ocean Challenge. And Ocean Challenge is a youth development program that centers on the True Parents' vision for the sea. And they've had 3 successful years, and we're about to start our 4th season. And if you want to know about it, you can go to oceanchallenge.org, a little plug there, and sign up for that program. So Father came to Kodiak to bring his love to Kodiak and to remind us again of the significance of this location. He was there for an entire week, and every day we would have Hundake together with our True Parents. Father and Mother came together with our international president's family, Hyungjanim, his wife, and all of his children came, and we spent the whole week together. And in that environment, if you've been there, it's very intimate at North Garden. There's the True Parents live upstairs, and there's guest rooms where other people stay. Some people stay downstairs. But you're all living in one big home. It's like a family together with our True Parents, a very warm spirit. Next slide. This is the Kodiak family. And the lady down there in the green jacket next to the podium is Mrs. Jainan Fiala, and she's our pastor in Kodiak. She's the mother of Wendy Fiala. She's doing a marvelous job guiding our community there and really uplifting the presence, the foundation, and the victory of True Parents on that special island. During the time Father was there, it's sometimes hard to understand everything that he's doing because many things only he and God are really talking about. But he would do many conditions every morning, but then every day he went out on the sea. Now you can tell by that picture that Father has a fish on. And you can tell by the body language of the guy there, they're like, ooh, he just set the hook. And Father is about to catch one of the many hundreds of thousands of fish he's caught in the water of Kodiak. But Father doesn't just go there to fish, but he goes there to make conditions, for the salvation of humankind. That is Yananim, Hyungjanim's wife and daughter. The guy with the back to us is Hyungjanim. What he's got in his lap is a little dog. Everybody fishes, but Hyungjanim, he doesn't fish. He isn't opposed to fishing, but he doesn't fish himself. But he's there, he's totally engaged in everything. I went out one day on the boat with Hyungjanim, and everybody's out there catching fish right and left. And I got my pole in the water, and Hyungjanim started talking to me about ministry for like 40 minutes on the boat. And I listened carefully, but it was so difficult because all around me people are saying, fish on, and setting hooks, and fish are coming up, that he's teaching me about important aspects of ministry and attendance to our True Parents. This is my favorite form of attendance to True Parents, is to offer them a king salmon. And on that particular day, everybody there was Korean or spoke Korean, and we went out fishing with Father, and there were just fish everywhere. But even though we were doing well, Father told the captain, let's move to another location. He wasn't looking at Fish Finder or anything like that. He was using his spiritual fish finder. And we moved just a different location, and suddenly we just started catching king salmons like crazy. I hooked that one, first of all, that king salmon right there. And then at some point, Father got a phone call on the cell phone. And then everybody started laughing because they understood Korean and I didn't. And I asked somebody, what did Father say? He said, well, it might have been Mother calling. And she asked, well, where are you, Father? And he says, I'm in fish heaven. So Father never tires of fishing, and he loves fish so much. Next slide. It's really different when you go shopping with Mother on Kodiak Island. One day I didn't go fishing. I had other business to attend to. And then one of the staff members said, well, Mother wants to go shopping. Well, here, you would go to the mall, maybe you go to Macy's or somewhere like that. But in Kodiak, you go shopping at Walmart. That's the best place to shop in Kodiak. One of the only places to shop. Or you go to Mac's Sporting Goods shop. Those are the two places you shop. So I got the car, and I went with Mother and Yananim and her daughter, and we went to Walmart. I sat in Subway and drank a Coke while they bought T-shirts for people and came back. And then later, Mother wanted to go out on the Buskin River and she's as intrigued about fishing and invested in fishing as Father ever was. And she wanted to see if the silver salmon were running yet. So that picture you saw on the beach, we walked down to we drove down to the river and took a picture there. I asked if I could take a picture. Then Jan and him said, "Oh, you should get a picture too." And so then I got a picture with me, but I thought I shouldn't show 2 slides of me with True Parents because that might be showing off. But if you want to see it later, I'll share it with you. So then, next slide, please. This, in Father's last day there before he went to the airport, Father wrote this proclamation, which is really a blessing to the island of Kodiak. He spent the whole week in that island blessing that island and its people, educating us, training us, claiming that place for God and for God's providence. And he wrote this beautiful calligraphy. And you'll see up in the upper left-hand corner, it says number 74, because that was page 74. You know that speech book that Father carries all the time? He put that in there and said, this is page 74 in the speech book. So that was the last thing he did before he left. And the final slide, please. And then Mr. Furuta, who was assigned the responsibility by Father for Kodiak, was sharing the calligraphy with everyone there. So that's just a sampling of Kodiak, True Parents' last visit to the island. And I would like to encourage you to come to Kodiak sometime, you know. I'll make sure that you're well taken care of. You'll be well fed. You'll definitely, even a bad day fishing in Kodiak is better than a good day in the Hudson River, I tell you. You get so spoiled there. You can't fish anywhere else. You think you feel like a killer fisherman, you know. But, you know, I was up there 2 weeks ago and Jaga Gavin was there. And he caught this fish. I mean, you could literally put your head in its mouth. It looks like a sea monster, lingcod. Huge fish. So anyway, that's the district. That's the introduction. But don't worry. The rest of my talk won't be too long, but I do want to talk about liberation. And my path, my message in liberation starts with my own life and with my own testimony. And I'd like to share something about myself. We're all from unique and interesting families, don't you think? You know, our parents, all of our parents are a little wonderful and a little weird. It's just a fact of life. And my parents were also weird and wonderful. My dad a little weird, my mom wonderful. They're both wonderful, altogether wonderful. And my dad, he grew up in very difficult circumstances. His parents were immigrants from the Ukraine. His father was. Their entire family was killed during the revolution, and he and his brother escaped. They immigrated to the United States and moved to western Pennsylvania, where they worked hard lives. Uniontown, Pennsylvania is where my dad was born, by the way. And they were coal miners, and they worked in the steel mills. It was really hard life, difficult life. And his mother, also an immigrant from Czechoslovakia. And he grew up, he only spoke Russian until he was 6 years old because he lived in an immigrant community and he didn't start school until then. Whereas my mom is from a very stable farm family. They lived in Northwest Washington. They have their roots in North Dakota. You know, Welsh, Irish, Scottish people. And really responsible, not particularly religious, but just solid citizens, good, stable people. But my parents' meeting was a wartime romance. You see the movies, it was like that. He was a handsome young sailor on the battleship Colorado and was in repairs in Bremerton, Washington. My mother was gorgeous. I mean, it's hard to believe, but she was really amazing. And she's still gorgeous. My mom's 88 years old and lives by herself and active as can be. But, yay, Mom. So she had they met at a dance. They had dances there. She worked at the Bremerton shipyards and probably like a typist or something like that. They met, they fell in love at a dance, they got married a month later, he went off to war. And, you know, that's the way a lot of the marriages went. Many of those marriages didn't work. This marriage did, through incredible challenges and difficulty, but a great deal of that success is due to the stability of my mother's family and how they really embraced my father and loved him. So I see that as a first step in why I can be here. These two really opposing forces came together, centered on love, and were glued together by family. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. And And they're all, of course, very different from me. I'm the second child in the family, which may or may not mean anything. As I was growing up, we lived a lot. We moved a lot. We lived in the Northwest and in the Intermountain West, places like Idaho and Utah, Colorado and Wyoming. And so I loved the out of doors, and I really wanted to be like a forest ranger or a smoke jumper. You know what a smoke jumper is? They're guys that when the fire gets started, they see a little fire, they jump out of an airplane, and they go there and they put out the fire before it becomes a really big fire. And I was really excited by that. I'd read these novels of adventures of young people in Alaska and in Canada, and people being lost in the jungle and stuff like that. I thought, wow, this is the kind of life I want to live, a life of adventure. But then in junior high school, I took an aptitude test. An aptitude test is to help you determine what path you should take in the future, you know, what's the best career option for you based on your personality. So they ask this whole battery of questions. And then you would meet with a counselor, and they would talk to you about what you're best suited to do. And I was so excited, I met with a counselor, and she said, you know, Larry, you would be a great librarian, you know. Or a nurse. Oh, man, my heart sunk, you know, but I don't want to be a librarian. And I was so disappointed. But I learned something about that. When you take those tests and they ask that question, would you rather be playing baseball with your friends or reading a book to a sick child? Pick baseball, and then you won't be consigned to a library for the rest of your life. But seriously, what that indicated was that, there was something in me that I didn't know that was deeper than what my desires were. I was a pretty good kid through high school, and I think part of it was because I didn't live anywhere long enough to get in serious trouble. We lived in, I went to 5 junior high schools, 5 of them. It's hard to make many friends. You just try not to get beat up because you're the new guy. And then, and I went to 3 high schools. So, that may have contributed to why I did a hard time figuring out what to do with my life. I really wanted to know what to do with my life, but getting out of high school, I didn't have an idea. So I thought, I'll join the Coast Guard. I'll go in the military. They'll keep me busy. They'll have something for me to do. And of course, that was during the Vietnam era, so there was really something to do. But I was kind of oblivious to the realities of the world at that time. But my dad knew that I was interested in going in the service, and he put my name on the list to join the Coast Guard. And I'm so glad that he did, because he could have potentially saved my life or certainly my sanity. And so I joined the Coast Guard, and I was in the Coast Guard for 4 years. But that was my first time away from home and from a stable environment. And a military situation with a bunch of single men is not the most stable environment. You have strict regulation according to your mission and your work, but after that, you're on your own to do whatever good or evil you choose to do. And of course, young men all together in circumstances like that, they don't usually go to prayer meetings and go out and help sick children. They do other things that are not so good. But I confess, I participated in some not so good things. But my wife has forgiven me, so has God, Jesus, and true parents. But I was not, let's hear it for salvation and forgiveness. But I want you to know that I was not as bad as I could have been. And there was a reason for that, because God sent strange angels to protect me in the form of 2 guys in particular, Leslie David Frazier, Jr., and another fellow affectionately known as Pigpen Reardon. And there's a reason that he was called that. But these guys, we would buddy around, do different things, but these guys they were involved in all kinds of wild stuff. But they would not let me participate in the degree of wildness that they wouldn't let me do it. They would protect me from doing things that they themselves would do. They would let me participate to a certain point, but there'd be a point where they would ditch me, or they would just disappear. They'd say, no, you better stay back, Krishnik. We'll talk to you later. And I was frustrated by that, because everyone else could go and do whatever they were doing, but I couldn't go with them. Later on, I understood these guys, and I really appreciate them. I'm praying for them. I'm looking for them when I get to the spirit world, because I think without them, I could have gone down a very dark path and maybe not come nowhere near to God and to salvation. Then also, along the way in my course in the Coast Guard, I met people who tried to understand other people through me. I was, at that time, the Coast Guard was a place where there were a lot of people who were there to avoid being in the armed forces, like the Army or the Marine Corps or the Navy. There was a war going on, a dangerous and difficult war in Vietnam. So naturally, many people wanted to escape from that possibility. And the legal way out, if you could get into it, was to get into the Coast Guard. And it was very difficult to get into the Coast Guard. So many of the people there were not there for the right motivations. They weren't there for like the motivation perhaps that Jaga was there. He spent 4 years in the Coast Guard. He was there to do good things, I'm sure, enforce the laws of the sea and to do search and rescue missions and take care of aids to navigation. These guys were there to avoid difficulty. And so there was a very strange bunch. The old guard, they couldn't figure out the new guard. But for some reason, they thought they could figure these guys out through me. I don't know what they saw in me. I didn't have any idea why I was like I was, and I wasn't particularly good. But I remember one time the bosun's mate, Watson, the other guy, set me down really serious and tried to understand. Now, what are you guys thinking about? Well, I don't know what we're thinking about. And so, why do you know, we give you punishment, because you don't do it right, and you don't change your behavior. And why is that? And I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't have a clue. And, but it made me wonder, why are you talking to me? I'm no different than anybody else, but there was something going on. And then finally, I was about to end my enlistment. I had 4 years and 2 months in the Coast Guard, and I was on a Coast Guard cutter in Coos Bay, Oregon. And we had to, I was a week away from leaving the service. You know this story? Yeah. And we got called on a search and rescue mission for a Taiwanese freighter that lost steerage 300 miles off the coast of Oregon. We had to go off to rescue this ship. I was so angry because I knew I would be 3 days late in getting out of the service because of that ship that had the audacity to break down off the coast of Oregon at that time. I was so angry. And I was so angry that I wrapped chains around my ankles. Can you imagine me doing that? And like a prisoner. And I was walking around the ship, clanking around the ship, and singing a Johnny Cash song. I've got stripes, stripes around my shoulders. I got chains. And one day I ran into the captain. And Commander Ripley, he looks at me, and he's got a root beer in his hand, and he just shakes his head and walks by. Didn't say a thing. I thought I was toast. Well, anyway, we got back. I got all my papers signed. I'm ready to get out. It's my last day in the service, and then someone gives a message to me. He said, Captain wants to see you out in the fantail, Krishnik. My heart beat. I thought, oh no, here it comes, Payback time. He was waiting until the last day to get me. And he came out to me, sat down, and just like a father, he said, Krishnik, that's what he called me. He said, you did a good job, and you didn't even try. That was his words to me. Well, yeah. And he said, you could have easily made right. You're an E3, you're an electronic technician, you're a smart guy. Why didn't you try to improve yourself in the Coast Guard? And I thought, I was so embarrassed, and I didn't know what to say. It would have been easier to be yelled at, or be scolded or something like that. But he was asking me some important questions. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, the same as these other guys had done. And then he did a remarkable thing. He had this flag on the ship when you're out at sea or when you're on duty. There's this pennant they fly up there, and he gave it to me as a gift after our last trip. And I was so, I was just humbled. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what that meant at the time. But then later on, I came to understand exactly what was going on. And as a side story, I wanted to let this guy know. I always remembered Commander Ripley, after I was saved, after I found God and true parents. And I wanted to let him know that I turned out all right. I remembered him all the time. I thought, I got to let him know, that I'm all right. I'm doing good. And so it was a little hard to find people until the age of the internet. But now there's these great resources out there. And about 4 years ago, I found this online resource reunion site. and I connected to the former senior chief of the Coast Guard, and they were really happy to help out. And they got me his email address. So I sent him an email, and I said, Commander, I don't know if you remember me, but I sure remember you. And I described the whole incident and everything. He lives in Connecticut somewhere. And he wrote me back right away, and he says, I'm so humbled. He said, my wife is a retired school teacher. And she said, now I know how she feels when a student calls her up after 20 years and said, you really made a difference in my life. And I was so happy, to be able to connect to him. And then I asked him, what was the meaning of that flag, and why did you give it to me? This is more than 35 years, 37 years after the fact. And he explained to me, usually an outgoing commanding officer on a vessel gives it to the incoming commanding officer on the vessel. You don't just give it, to some obnoxious Coast Guardsman on his way out of the service, but somehow he honored me with that. And actually, he couldn't even explain exactly why he did that. But I think he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So, moving along. You all right out there? Anyway, I got out of the service, and I worked for my dad for a couple of years, and then I went to college. I went to Boise State College in Boise, Idaho, and I signed up for a 2-year vocational horticulture course. I was going back to my dream about getting close to the forest. It wasn't exactly being a smoke jumper or a forest ranger, but I love trees. I love plants. I love to see how they grow. Whenever I couldn't understand many other things in life, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I always felt comforted by plants. I love to be around plants. Other people were getting excited about other things. If you remember in the 70s, it was like a time of great spiritual upheaval. They talked about the age of Aquarius and planets lining up or whatever, but it was a different time. There were so many religious groups out there. There's not only Unification Church, but there was the Children of God, there was a Hare Krishna, of course there was a Scientologist, there was a group with a 16-year-old perfect master. There were little, you remember them all, right? They were everywhere. You go out in the parks and everybody was witnessing and everybody was joining something and becoming part of something. Especially there were a lot of Jesus freaks, many different, they called themselves Jesus freaks. That's not derogatory. They're like hippies, they're cool, and they're into Jesus. So I had friends doing all these things. And at the same time, I had a strong compulsion, like almost a voice in my mind telling me, Larry, you got to do something with your head. And it didn't mean, my cabeza head, but it meant like with your mind, with your heart, And it was a strong feeling. So I really wanted to try to understand religion, but I couldn't. I couldn't get excited about the things people get excited about. Some friends would be excited about forming a commune and going off somewhere and raising organic chickens or whatever, and living in South America or something. You remember that. We all wanted to do that. Maybe some of you did it. But I get excited. I love the notion, but I can see it's not going to work, because you'll cheat on you and you'll do this and that, and then after 2 years everyone will be angry and they'll quit and they'll leave. And I'd always see the grim end of a situation, so I couldn't get excited about it. I wasn't very idealistic. At the same time, I recognized that I was really divided. I was kind of being pushed up against a wall. I couldn't understand anything spiritual, though I felt that I should pursue spiritual truth. But at the same time, I knew that I was divided. I knew that I was out of control in many ways. I actually had the experience one time when I looked in the mirror in my bathroom, and I saw myself, and half of it was good, and half of it was evil. And that was a shock. And I wrote, actually a little poem came to my mind. One eye's evil, one eye ain't. One's of the devil, and the other's of a saint. And I could, that was the end of my, thank you. That'll be the only verse in my publication. But, and I remember that very well. And I was just stuck in the middle. And I had no idea where to go or what to do. But at the same time, I had a voice, an actual voice would tell me, Larry, you're special. And I said, what? Do you know who you're talking to? I think you got the wrong number. This is me, I have no control over my life. I can't understand anything. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a problem to everybody and to myself, and I'm special? And the voice, you're special. And I hated it. I would fight myself. Special, bam, I'd punch myself. I'll show you special. And I would I just hated the notion because that can't be special. That's not possible. But it persisted. But again, I was encouraged by the plants. I was in horticultural school. The one thing that gave me comfort and solace was the plants, because plants are so pure. They're so committed to survive and to procreate. If you know about plants, they grow in all kinds of ways. They do. You can cut the roots and put another piece of root and grow a plant. They'll grow from seeds, certainly. You can take a cutting of a leaf and you can get it to root and you can grow a plant. Plants have so many ways to propagate. It's amazing. Their determination to thrive and survive is just fascinating. So even though all this was going on and I couldn't find out things spiritual, I was learning something through that. So this was the time when I found a leaflet at school in the break room, a half-page leaflet, a flyer. It said Spirit World. And I was drinking coffee. I was with my friend George there. And then it had things like about palmistry and numerology and auras. And then at the bottom it said Acts 2:17, where it says, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and many spiritual phenomena would happen. And it really struck me because I thought, wow, you know, how do all these things relate to each other? And somehow I had sensed that things spiritual had a common foundation, but I had never articulated that. I saw that flyer and I thought, something going on here. And I wouldn't usually go to things like that, but it struck me. I wanted to go. So I told 3 of my friends, and we got in a Volkswagen, and we went to the program at Boise State College that night. And standing at the door was Frank Davis. You know Frank from Austin, Texas? And I saw Frank Davis, and I'd seen Frank all year hanging around at the community college, at my school. And he was also a student there. I didn't know. He was always looked like he was looking for somebody all the time. Actually, he was. And I thought he was somebody important, and actually he was. I would see him around and think, maybe he's in student government. The guy looks pretty serious, and he seems to know what he's doing. And I sort of, without knowing him, kind of respected him. So when I went into the school that night to go to that program, there's Frank standing there. And I was like, this guy's got something to do with this. So that piqued my interest. So I went into the lecture, and the lecture was on the spirit world. It was a principle of creation, but it started with an explanation of the spirit world. And I won't go into that too much, but that for me was an incredible revelation. In one lecture, I was completely transformed. All my questions were answered, every one of them. I had an incredible, downflowing, upwelling, influxing of the Holy Spirit. I got zapped from 360 directions simultaneously with truth and love in a way that I couldn't imagine. I'll be frank with you, I went there and I was not entirely, I was a little inebriated. But I went there, and this is important. I'm sure I won't be invited back. But I was resurrected. I went in there high. I went out of there in a zone I'd never been in before. And that was powerful to me. I thought, wow, this is powerful stuff. This is really strong. I changed everything on that day. Everything that I did that was wrong, I didn't want to do anymore. I found what I wanted. I knew who I was. I knew I had value. I had hope. I believed in God. I understood the spirit world. Everything that had been foggy in my mind came into order and got clear in that moment. I was liberated. And I realized that it was a long course that led up to that liberation through people like, you know, Pigpen Reardon and Commander Ripley and people like that. All along the way protected me. God works in mysterious ways to get people on the right course, but it all bore fruit in that moment. But that moment was paid for by the heartfelt investment of a lot of people in the spirit world and on the earth. So it was a powerful time, and it changed me completely. The word hope came into my life. It was amazing. I still feel it. I say hope, I feel hope. From that moment I did. I'd go out fundraising or witnessing, I'd talk about the principle, and what we're doing, we're trying to give, this message gives hope to young people. I'd say it, and I would feel it, and they'd get hit with it. And it was powerful. I'd never had hope before like that. And also I knew that God needed me. God absolutely needed me. I had a sign. We were out street preaching in the corner in Boise, Idaho, and my sign said, God needs you. And this Christian lady said, no, you need God. But no, I really felt that, and I knew that that was true. Of course I need God, but God needs you. God needs me. God needs everybody in heaven and on earth. There's no way around that. So through my life and my experience, I've come to understand the value of a single person, starting with an understanding of my own value. I had inclinations to goodness, but I couldn't understand them until I could discover the truth of God's love through the divine principle. When I could understand how much God invested in me and how urgent heaven is for each of us to understand that, and for all of us who do understand that, to act upon it. This is what true parents want us to do, and this is how we can liberate them, by loving everybody. I'd like to say that, in my opinion, Love and Life Ministry is a liberation movement. It's not by guns and swords and fists and fighting, but it's a movement of liberation by love. And like all liberation movements, it requires visionary leadership, the leadership the Reverend Injun Moon has provided us. It requires courage. It requires persistence to create a movement like we have with the Loving Life Ministry. Prior to Love and Life, I really wanted to see some kind of a national ministry. I mean, we were all out there. We had great pastors. We have wonderful brothers and sisters. We have people with amazing experience, but what we didn't have was like a brand or a common thread or like a common message running through our movement. And I longed for that. I really wanted to have that. I felt uncomfortable. I could talk about things in my life, but we got 50 states and hundreds of centers and different peoples and personalities, but there was no like common thread or common brand. So now we need to bring about a cultural change, and I believe that Love and Life Ministry is definitely, not believe, is definitely leading that cultural change. A close minister to ours in Seattle, a young man, about a 32-year-old Pentecostal preacher. He's a preacher in one of the emerging church. He came to plant a church in Covington, Washington, and it's growing. He's really on the cutting edge of what it takes, for churches to grow. And he had a conversation with our state pastor in Oregon, David Coriel. And he said, I don't have any problem with your teaching. You're teaching about true parents. That's not your problem at all. He says, and Ingenim is doing everything right. If you study church growth and the modern church growth, Ingenim is spot on. She's nailing it. He says, your problem is your culture. And the problem is our culture, because culture needs to be refreshed at various points along the course of the life of anything. And it takes a younger generation to refresh the culture. And so that's happening in our movement, too, through our younger generations. What are the concerns and interests that I don't want to speak on behalf of young people, but I was actually a young person once, and I remember what they were, so I can speak to it, and you can respect it. Human rights, right? You care about people and their rights and about their happiness and about their freedom and fairness. Issues of justice, solving needs, issues of disaster relief. Something goes wrong, you go on campus, they're the first ones, to collect money or to put together some kind of program to solve a problem. They're the ones that lead creative expression. Look at the music. Occasionally you have Reverend Carter playing piano, but he's young in heart. But other than that, everybody is really young. I love you, Reverend Carter. And art, dance, sports, all these things emerge from the shimjung of young people. It's very close, in younger people. When we get older, it kind of sputters a little bit as we age, and we get a little compromised by the realities of life around us. But the energy and righteousness of youth awakening to life's possibilities also rekindles the fire in us elders. Isn't that correct? We're all ballroom dancing. How many of you older folks ballroom danced before? We never did that before. Did we listen to the kind of music like this music, jazz music at Sunday service? That was amazing. I love Kennedy. I'm in love, and I love the music. It's a wonderful ministry. Also, we find now that our movement has taken on new life in areas that deal with issues like the Japanese faith breaking led by our senior pastor. And that's a cooperative effort between the younger people and older, multi-generational project. Issues like human trafficking and services of all kinds. So Love and Life Ministry is addressing the cultural issues. We have great resources now. We have the quarterly launch materials that are they're outstanding. When you think about what comes to us, we don't ask for it. It comes in a box every month. Church in a box, kind of. There's everything you need for that theme. It's wired, right? That's our theme this month, or this quarter, is wired. And it speaks to the fact that all of us have something unique and important to offer. And how liberating is it to be able to discover your gift, what you have that you can give, for other people. I think about the people who helped me in my course, and I think about those people, those unlikely people who protected me from doing the wrong that I would have done. They probably didn't exactly know what they were doing, but they saw us. They were wired to see, we better not corrupt Krishnek. He's worthy of protection. I don't know why they saw that. I don't know the conditions that brought that about, but they were there. They're two very specific people, and they were protecting me. And they weren't protecting themselves, and they weren't protecting anyone else, but they were wired uniquely. Maybe that was their big moment in life. I don't know. Maybe they went on, maybe they went to Tibet and became monks. I really doubt that. But maybe that was their big moment. And I feel responsible for that. In my heart, I want to help these guys out. I was even Googling David the other day. I know where he lives. I know he's in San Diego. I got to find him sometime. But I want to tell these people that I know who helped me that they helped me, and they're wired to help. But the point is that we're all wired to do something. We not be able to do huge ministries or merely fantastic organizational things, but we have something in us that God has placed in us that's in nobody else, that is very important to at least somebody. And everybody is important. Thank you. So this, in conclusion, this is the gift of our true parents. Many gifts from our true parents. But for me, it's a revelation of the value of the individual, of our holiness, of our unique potential. No one is forgotten, not in the spirit world, not in the physical world. No one can be forgotten. I see my grandson. I love that guy so much. I can't imagine that I could love anybody that much. I miss him all the time. I got all these pictures on my phone. They're all of him. I love texting. I get new pictures all the time of him. I'm going through them. It's on my screensavers. I change them all the time. He's unfairly loved almost. He's so much loved, but I realize that's how much all of us should love every child, and that's how much love every child should receive. But we know that's not the case. Even in our communities, you're on the bus, on the sub, you're walking down the street, and you see what relationships are like. You see how children suffer. Their parents suffered. But each one of them is so important. So we have to liberate them. Reverend Injun Moon is calling on us to liberate our true parents. And the way we liberate our true parents is to be like the true parents. It's to love everybody, to care about everybody. You may not like everybody. There's a lot of people I don't particularly like, and I'm sure don't like me. But I have to love them, and I can't just write them off. I can't consign them to some other zone in life. I can't wish them evil. I may not know how to deal with them, but somebody does. Somebody's wired to help that person out, and in the long run, we'll get there. So now is our time that we can do the same thing that our true parents have done. And we can never give up on this holy project. You're not too old for this. Even if you're 70, 80, 90, we can never give up on this project. We should believe in it. We should work toward it until we pass on into the next realm. So our belief, thank you. Amen. So our belief and our passion can really save the world and its people. It truly can. So I'd like to thank you very much for your kind attention. It's been a wonderful pleasure to be here. God bless you all. Thank you.